Coming up on Network Africa, Niger declares 3 days of national mourning after a Boko Haram attack left several Nigerian soldiers dead. Then the anger over the Egyptian island giveaway continues across Egypt. And later, South African authorities continue to shut down reports about an imminent attack by the so-called ISIS on South African soil. Network Africa starts right now. Hello and welcome to Network Africa. I am Adeshewa Josh. The authorities in Niger have declared 3 days of national mourning for soldiers who were killed by Boko Haram fighters in the town of Bozo, which is quite close to the country's border with Nigeria. 26 soldiers from Niger and 2 officers from Nigeria were killed in the attack last Friday. We understand that more than 100 soldiers and civilians were also injured in the attack, which claimed about 58 Boko Haram lives while they tried to take the town. Well, let's bring in security and terrorism expert David Otto, who joins us from London. Thank you so much, David, for speaking to us on a Network Africa.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My first question to you is, considering that neighboring countries continue to experience a spillover of the war and terror, which is going on in Nigeria, as we have seen in Niger and other neighboring countries, is this inevitable?
Well, it's not inevitable, because one of the things which we have to take into consideration is the fact that Boko Haram is not limited to Nigeria. We know that, they laid their eggs, it all originated in northern Nigeria. But what is happening now is the group has changed its strategy and it's expanded, between Nigeria, Cameroon, Niger, Chad. So this attack that took place recently in the town of Bozo is not a surprise. What the organization does is it looks at the porosity of the borders and then easily spills into any of these nations. So the whole thing, lies within the borders of Nigeria, Cameroon, Niger, and which is a regional problem.
How successful is this war on terror if neighboring countries continue to inherit the same problem that we're chasing out of a country?
Yes, the whole issue is that, if you target Boko Haram in one regional state, i.e. in Nigeria alone, and then you don't target it in other regional states, so you need that collaboration between state governments and security services to share intelligence and to share challenges, and experiences. If not, what happens is Boko Haram would use the advantage that, they have access to all these other states, to torment, all these neighboring states. So what happens is if Boko Haram is chased away from northern Nigeria, they will simply go into Niger and then go into Chad and then go into Cameroon. So you need a regional joint, practical, performance from all these countries in order for you to be able to actually tackle the military aspects of things in a proper manner.
The president has actually been on the forefront with the regional collaboration. His first set of trips, as soon as he assumed office, were targeted at forming a regional force. But tell us, how crucial and robust should these efforts be?
I mean, interestingly, for the first time in the region, Buhari, when he came to power, what he's been able to do is he's been able to go to all these regional states, and the president have also, had the opportunity to visit him, which is very important because, you cannot defeat Boko Haram in Nigeria and then you don't defeat it in Niger, Chad, or Cameroon. So I think the important step which Buhari has initiated, is a very, very good strategy because what he has done is it has given that kind of a regional collaborative strategy rather than, just dealing with the problem in Nigeria or Cameroon alone. So I think that is the best way forward. But one of the biggest problems they have is lack of resources, and who actually is going to fund these 8,700 troops that, between all these states, including Benin. That is one of the biggest problems they are facing in terms of funding, these resources to work collaboratively.
Talking about resources, before I ask you that question, let me just quickly ask you this one. Where does the international community come in when looking at situations like this?
I think the international community is very important because, as I did mention earlier, that we have porous borders. And then you have Boko Haram linking itself with Libya. And then from Libya, most of these Boko Haram members or Al-Shabaab members who are being linked to Boko Haram would now find their way easily to Europe. So the whole thing is linked, geographically, and not just ideologically. So we have this geographical, ideological, and weapons capacity sharing within these organizations. It means that the international community has to be able to steep its hands into the solution pot and offer a very realistic solution. If not, what we would see is that, the problem will be tackled in Nigeria and then it spreads to Libya, and all these Boko Haram members who have free access, and to Libya will be able to come and punish the West. So it is a global problem, rather, and it is not just a regional or national problem.
So the question I've been wanting to ask you, a lot of people continue to ask the question about resources, especially for the Boko Haram sect and other terrorist groups. But let's focus on Boko Haram right now. How easy it does appear that they have weapons freely get into their hands, and we continue to complain that those tackling them, our military and the Joint Task Force, do not have enough resources to fight the war. Can we begin to look at how not to let these weapons flow freely into the hands of terrorists and Boko Haram?
I mean, there are two ways which you can look at this. One of them is that, the chaos, that has been caused in Libya, it's an open route, for most of these organizations to actually get free arsenal, free weapons and arms and ammunition flowing in through the porous borders. Another thing which we have to know and take into consideration is most African governments, especially Nigeria, Cameroon, Niger, and Chad, these governments do not manufacture weapons. The people that manufacture weapons, are the big, Great Britain, the United States, China, Russia. So these are the states, that really manufacture weapons. And this is where the problem should be. The problem should be on how do you actually police, most of these weapons which are being scattered all over Africa, and not just Africa and in the Middle East. But the weapons that leave the Middle East, that go through to Libya, which have been in the hands of terrorist organizations, these are the weapons that, most of these Boko Haram members lay their hands on. So I think, the international community has to be able to monitor and have a strategic, I'm talking about the African Union here. The African Union has to step in. But the problem you have with the African Union is that the African Union is being sponsored by countries like China and the West. So it gives them, the mouth, but not the resources to be able to tackle their own problems in Africa. So it is a very complex problem. But unless, you tackle the capacity or the capability of these organizations, which is in terms of, finance, which is in terms of weapons, you will not do anything more than, you will not achieve any success without doing that. But I don't think, the African Union is at its best at the moment. I think, it's more of a talking workshop.
Right.
But yes, the capability is a big issue.
Okay then. David Otto, thank you so much for speaking to us on this issue, security and terrorism expert from London. Thank you. Still talking security, according to the United Nations-sponsored Okapi Radio, about 50 gunmen believed to be fighters of the Ugandan rebel group, the Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, launched a raid over the weekend about 500 kilometers north of Kisangani in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The report further states that about 100 people are believed to have been kidnapped in the attack on Bondo territory. The administrator of Bondo explained the troops were pursuing them into Adama Forest, believed to be the rebels' hiding place. The LRA was formed in northern Uganda nearly 3 decades ago, but retreated to DR Congo and other countries as it came under military pressure. Let's take a break on Network Africa. When we come back, the anger over the Egyptian island giveaway continues across Egypt. We'll give you the latest from Cairo. Do join us again.